to the podcast, The Dental Breakdown. My name is Christian White. I'm the CEO of White & Associates Practice Consulting. Better business, better dentistry. We are a practice management consulting firm for dentists and other healthcare-related businesses. Our sole purpose is to implement proven strategies through online and in-practice visits that result in the personal and professional success for you and your team. We are in the business of making the difference between good and great. This podcast will help your team have a larger impact on your patients, create long-term lasting relationships with patients and with each other, increase the bottom line, and be happier during the day. You can listen when you first wake up in the morning or just before you go to bed at night, on the way to and from work, or during your lunch break. Podcast was meant for you and your team's busy lifestyle. Each podcast will be between 10 and 15 minutes long and focus on the daily challenges, frustrations, and concerns you and your team face daily. All right, I'm done with the scripting part. Yes! Let's get right to it. Today, I would like to introduce our guest to the podcast. This is a man we caught boarding a plane this morning, literally. That's how busy he is. Complete craziness. This man has reinvented the dental practice transition business. He actually spends time understanding his clients' wants and needs, and guess what? They love him for it. Can you believe it? That probably explains why he's so busy. Please, let's welcome Joe Fricton, everyone.
Thank you, Christian.
Yes. All right, security, calm everybody down. Okay, here we go.
Thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. I'm just glad that we could get you in here this morning. I know you're really busy.
Yeah.
Let me start off by asking you this. Tell me a little bit about your story, because a lot of people don't know that you have a little bit of dental background.
I do.
And how did you get into this business of dealing with dentists?
Well, I come from a family of dentists. My mom was a general dentist here in Minnesota. My dad is my mom's retired. My dad does TMJ, oral pain specialist, and my stepmom is an orthodontist. I also had a grandfather who was a dentist, a cousin who was a dentist down in Florida, but I was the black sheep of the family that went to law school. And kind of what happened, my story, why I really wanted to represent dentists is that is an experience that my mom went through.
Okay.
She started to practice from scratch and grew it into a very successful practice and brought on two partners. And unfortunately, the contracts that she had for a partnership didn't really provide any protections from her. She had a falling out with her partners, and she was forced to leave, and she had to kind of finish up her career, not in the practice that she started from scratch, but working for other friends, which was not the worst thing for her. She was able to work in other practices and get different experiences, teaching at a hygiene program and other things. But that really kind of inspired me to want to protect dentists as they go through their career, joining practices, retiring from their practice, and make sure that they're kind of protected all the way through.
So, Joe, as a lawyer, I mean, can I say dental lawyer? Is that okay to say?
Yeah, you can say that.
Yes,
definitely.
Okay, good. As the dental lawyer, I like that. That's a good tagline for you. How do you protect the dentists? What do you do? As far as making sure that I'm signing a contract that I should be signing, or I'm doing something that's in my best interest, not somebody else's.
Well, the best thing is that what I try to do is I really try to figure out what a dentist is looking for, what their goals are for the particular contract or transaction, transition, whatever they're going through. So, for example, a lot of times I will work with a newer doctor they got their first associate contract, and I talk to them. One of the big things we talk about is a non-compete, and the non-compete covenant that they're going to be signed as a part of their associate agreement. And I'll ask them, what are their family goals and needs for that contract? If something happens where they need to leave, are they going to be leaving and moving to, if they're in the cities, are they going to be moving to Duluth? Well, if that's the case, then the non-compete isn't as big of a deal. But maybe they want to stay close, and so then we will try to make sure that the length of the non-compete, instead of a year or 2 years, we'll try to reduce it down to 6 months, but maybe have a bigger geography. And so what I try to do is make sure that the contract, that I know what the dentist is looking for, and then I fit the contract into what their needs are and their goals are. And it's, with any transition, there are two parties. And so we need to make sure that we're going to fit the contract into what the other side is going to need. Okay. And so we try to understand and put ourselves in their shoes, as well as my client's shoes, to find a kind of creative solution. Because none of these transitions are cookie cutter. They're all, each one is individual.
So they're each different.
And we need to make sure that I understand what everyone needs in the transition, so we can find a solution for that's going to work. So they both say yes and sign on the bottom line.
Okay, so one transition is not the same as another one.
That's exactly right. I mean, from a timing standpoint, I met with someone just last night, and it's an associate who is going to be buying into a dental practice and buying out the senior doctor, but that associate has an offer from another practice to go join.
Oh.
And so she wants to get the transition done as soon as possible. My client, who is going to be retiring, thinks it's going a little too fast and wants to push it out. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to work with, I know that for both sides, and I'm going to try to find a common ground where we can maybe satisfy what the associate, the younger doctor, needs, but also make sure that the senior doctor isn't feeling that she's being pushed out in that situation. But it's understanding their needs to find a common ground.
So when you talk about understanding the needs, Joe, how do you do that? What do you do to go about doing that?
Well, a lot of it is just talking. What I try to do, I try to listen as much as I can and let them tell me what they're going through, what they're thinking about, and I always try to make sure that I've spoken to both sides of the transaction. Both doctors. If it's one doctor who's going to be selling to a younger doctor, I try to connect with both, and that's one of the things that works really well for us. Is that if we're trying to find a younger doctor to transition and take over another practice, we've developed relationships with a lot of the younger doctors, and we're constantly at the dental school and talking to new people and younger people, and we get to know them and understand their personalities and their needs. And so when I bring someone in to look at a retiring doctor's practice, or someone who's looking to transition out of their practice, I can really understand both of that. So, but it really takes a knowledge of the people and their goals.
Understood. Okay. So you do actually talk to both parties. It's not like what you see on television where the lawyer comes in and you represent one side and then you guys battle it out.
We do have ethical rules that if someone is represented by an attorney, then I cannot speak to that dentist until I have the consent of the other attorney. And part of my practice, my philosophy is not cutting corners and making sure that I keep my ethical rules kind of at the forefront of all of my representation. That's really important to me as an attorney. Mm-hmm. But with that said, I have a number of other attorneys who I will refer a younger doctor to, who I have a relationship with, and they trust me, and they all routinely will give me consent to talk to them to work through those issues, because they know that I'm not trying to pull a fast one on anyone or try to sneak something through. I'm trying to get what's best for the practice, for this dental practice that a senior doctor who has built and put their all their effort and their energy into this, they want to make sure that the new person coming is supported, and me learning about that younger doctor will kind of helps that. And the attorneys who I work with, they understand that, and they will usually let me talk.
So that leads me to my next question, Joe. Tell me about, you've kind of alluded to this a little bit, the process. So the process from you get introduced to a client to everything that kind of happens when you get to the point where the practice is either bought or sold. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, it depends on if we're working for a younger doctor or buyer, because we probably 50% of our practice is working with people who are buying or joining a dental practice, either from an associate, buying into a partnership or taking over a practice and buying out a senior doctor. The other half is representing people who are transitioning out of their practice, retiring, moving on to other things. Sometimes they have to move to a different part of the country and they need to leave their practice. But there are generally about 3 phases in the transition when we work through on the seller side. The first phase is learning about the practice and making sure that the person who's going to be transitioning into the practice, either identifying that person or if there is someone already identified, understanding what their needs and their goals are. The second stage is kind of putting, and I guess part of the first stage is me coming up and brainstorming and talking to the doctors to figure out what the main terms of the transaction are going to be. From a purchase price, if we do the valuation, we'll do valuations to come up with a purchase price for the practice, figuring out what the needs post-closing are for each doctor, from a working, if the senior doctor is going to stay on as an associate, that will happen from time to time. The non-compete and all the other various terms of the contract, they're going to go into that. And we really try to then fit, as I've been talking about, fit all their goals into the contract, because we can write those contracts and put whatever we want in them.
Okay.
And we try to be nothing is really a form for us. Everything is going to be custom for that individual transaction. Then, so once we get all those terms, we've prepared a valuation for the practice, got a purchase price. We've talked together as a group to figure out what all the terms are going to be. We've got that into the contract. We've signed the purchase agreement. Then we kind of move on to the second stage, and that's really working on the transition piece, which is so important to transitioning a dental practice. Dental practices they're a service-based business. The patients have relationships with the senior doctors, and our goal, part of the transition, is to transfer those relationships to the younger doctor. The other piece that sometimes is forgotten, I think, is that dentists are in a very unique position. One of the reasons I love working with dentists is because they wear all the different hats.
Correct. Yes.
Of a dental practice. They are business owners. They are HR people. They're practicing dentists. They're the marketing people in their practice. They do all these. They wear all the hats. They're IT people. They're fixing computers.
Yes, they are.
And they have a wealth of knowledge in their brain that makes their dental practice work. It keeps it going, and that knowledge has created a successful practice for them. Well, in order to keep that successful, in order to make the buyer, the doctor who's taking over, transitioning into the practice successful, is we need to transfer that knowledge base from the senior doctor to the doctor who's taken over.
Correct.
And the way we do that, one is that we have several transition meetings to talk through all the different aspects of the practice, and to kind of make those meetings successful, as we have our senior doctor fill out a very comprehensive worksheet of as everything going on with the practice, from all their service providers, who they use to do the website, who they use to clear snow out on their sidewalk, to what type of supplies they use, to how long a particular they take for a particular procedure. We want to identify what the are they going to take? Do they have an hour for recall for hygiene and exam? Maybe it's 45 minutes. Maybe it's an hour and a half. How do they do new patients? We're trying to identify all the different aspects of how they run their practice, and then we will send that over to the younger doctor and then have them look at that, and then we talk through the whole thing.
Nice.
And what we do and then we want to make sure their assistant, because the younger doctor is going to take over and going to develop a relationship with the dental assistant, is make sure that they've had a chance to connect. Now, one piece of this is confidentiality is very important with any transition. And so we want to make sure that we keep the process confidential from patients and even from staff, not until the closing, but through a lot of the processes until we get to the end, till a couple weeks before the closing, so we can start working on that. But we want to make sure that the staff is fully supported and that they feel comfortable with the transition. And so we try to, for that period between signing the contract and the closing, it's really about getting as much of that knowledge from the selling doctor to the younger doctor taking over. The third phase is after the closing. And part of that is we'll do different things to help transition once it's all public, sending letters out to patients, doing open houses, doing other marketing pieces like connecting with local business owners if it's a smaller town. And then, and once we've gotten all the public marketing advertising piece out of the way, then it's on the younger doctor to be successful. And what we try to do is follow up with that doctor at least 3 months to 6 months after to see how things are going. We have a lot of connections with other people who help dentists like yourself. Correct. And if they're having an issue, sometimes they want to make a change, we'll connect them with White & Associates to help them really implement a change potentially or fix a problem. And that kind of ends the end. Yeah.
Wonderful. Joe, that was awesome. I think I was just sitting here listening to you and I'm just like trying to suck all this in because this is really good stuff. I know because we deal with dentists all the time and they don't, they're always at odds about this and how that works and that type of thing because they don't know what they don't know. So I'm really glad that we know you.
Good.
All right. Well, our time is winding down. Joe, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. You shared some very, very good information that will have a direct impact on our listeners' practices for sure. To all of our listeners, if you find value in our discussion and would like to learn more, please go to whitedentalconsulting.com/breakdown or call us at 952-432-3322. Thank you for listening today.